She was walking down a New York City street, and no one noticed her. Not a single person turned their head. Just another woman blending into the crowd, invisible among the hundreds of faces that passed by every minute in the city that never sleeps. But then, she stopped, looked at her friend, and said something that would reveal one of the most powerful secrets about human psychology. "Do you want to see me become her?" And in a moment, with nothing more than a shift in energy, she turned into Marilyn Monroe. Suddenly, heads turned. Cars slowed, and people stared. She hadn't changed her clothes or her makeup. She hadn't even spoken a word. What she changed was her state of being. That moment has become known as the Marilyn Monroe effect. And it contains a secret that could completely transform your life if you understand how to use it. Because what Marilyn Monroe did that day wasn't magic. It wasn't some supernatural ability reserved for Hollywood stars. It was the deliberate application of a principle that every single person possesses, but almost no one knows how to consciously control. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how she could shift her entire identity in an instant, command any room she entered, and create a magnetic presence that the world couldn't ignore. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how you can harness this same power to transform your own life. Step into your most confident self and finally become the person you've always known you could be. Here's what most people don't understand about Marilyn Monroe. The woman who could command the attention of an entire street, who could make presidents stumble over their words, who became the most recognizable face in the world. That woman started as someone just like you. Behind the glamour, behind the confidence that seemed to radiate from every photograph, was someone who understood that she didn't have to wait to become the person she wanted to be. She discovered she could step into that identity immediately. So, how did someone go from seemingly a nobody to one of the most famous and well-known people in the world? The answer lies in understanding the difference between who you are and who you can become in any given moment. Marilyn Monroe, the persona, the energy, the presence, wasn't something Norma Jean was born with. It was something she assumed, something she could slip into, like putting on a coat. This wasn't just acting. Actors play roles for audiences. What Marilyn discovered was something far more powerful. She learned how to assume different states of being for herself. When she said, "Do you want to see me become her?" she wasn't talking about pretending. She was talking about a fundamental shift in identity, a change so complete that her entire energy changed. Her posture changed, the way she occupied space changed, and the world responded instantly. Because here's the truth that most people never realize. The world doesn't respond to who you think you are. It responds to who you assume you are. And that assumption, that inner knowing, it's something you can control, something you can shift, something you can master. What Marilyn Monroe discovered, whether she knew it or not, was one of the most powerful laws governing human experience. It's called the law of assumption, and it states this: whatever you assume to be true about yourself becomes true in your experience. It's a belief so intense, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Think about it. If you assume you're awkward in social situations, how do you show up? You're tense, self-conscious, and constantly monitoring yourself for mistakes. And what happens? You fulfill that assumption, and you become awkward. If you assume you're unlucky, what do you notice? Every setback, every disappointment, every moment when things don't go your way. Your mind filters reality to match your assumption. But if you assume you're confident, magnetic, valuable, something completely different happens. You walk differently, you speak differently, and you make decisions differently. This isn't positive thinking. And this isn't fake it till you make it. This is understanding that your assumptions about yourself are the lens through which you experience reality. And when you change that lens, reality itself appears to change. Marilyn Monroe mastered this. When she assumed the state of a star, a goddess, a woman who commanded attention and desire, she didn't just think those thoughts. She became that assumption so completely that even her biochemistry changed. Her voice changed, her movement changed, and her entire presence shifted. And the world had no choice but to respond to what she was projecting. But here's what's revolutionary. You have this same power. But the only difference between you and Marilyn Monroe is that she learned to do consciously what most people do unconsciously. She learned to choose her assumptions instead of being a victim of them. This principle, the law of assumption, was taught most clearly by a man named Neville Goddard, a mystic and spiritual teacher who understood something profound about human consciousness. Neville taught that imagination creates reality, that your inner world doesn't just influence your outer world, it creates it. He said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Assume it. Live from the end. Become the person who already has what you want. Here's one of his most powerful teachings. You do not need to go anywhere or do anything to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Simply relax in a comfortable position. Close your eyes and assume you already are what you want to be. This is exactly what Marilyn Monroe did on that New York street. She didn't wait for evidence that she was a star. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't wait for the right circumstances. She simply assumed the state of being Marilyn Monroe. And in that assumption, she became her. Neville also taught, assumptions, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Think about that. Your assumptions, if you persist in them, don't just influence your reality. They become your reality. Every assumption you hold about yourself, whether empowering or limiting, is constantly being reinforced by your experience. Because your assumptions determine how you show up, and how you show up determines how the world responds to you. The broke person who assumes they're destined for poverty makes decisions from that assumption. They don't invest in themselves, they don't take risks, and they don't see opportunities. And their assumption becomes their reality. The confident person who assumes they're valuable makes different decisions. They speak up in meetings. They ask for what they want. They take intelligent risks. And their assumption becomes their reality too. But here's what Neville understood that most people miss. You don't have to wait for your circumstances to change before you change your assumption. You can change your assumption first, and then watch as your circumstances reorganize themselves to match your new state of being. This is what Marilyn Monroe did. She didn't wait to feel like a star. She assumed the state of being a star, and then the world reflected that assumption back to her. And right now, I'm going to show you how you can implement this technique into your own life, allowing you to create the reality you desire. So how do you actually use this? How do you stop being a victim of your unconscious assumptions and start consciously creating the life you want? Here's a step-by-step process that you can start using today. Step 1. Identify your current assumptions. First, you need to become aware of what you're currently assuming about yourself. Listen to your inner dialogue. What do you tell yourself about your abilities, your worth, your potential? Do you assume you're not good enough? Do you assume people don't find you interesting? Do you assume success is for other people, but not for you? These assumptions are running in the background of your mind constantly, shaping every decision you make and every action you take. Write them down. Become conscious of them, because you can't change what you're not aware of. Step 2. Define your desired state. Next, get clear on who you want to become. Do you want to be confident, charismatic, successful, creative, and loving? Get specific. How would this version of you walk into a room? How would they speak? How would they make decisions? How would they handle challenges? Create a clear picture of this ideal version of yourself. This is your new assumption. Step 3. Create the end scene. This is where Neville's teaching becomes practical. You need to create a mental scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled. Don't visualize the process of becoming confident. Visualize a scene where you are already confident. Maybe you see yourself giving a presentation and feeling completely at ease. Maybe you see yourself in a social situation, naturally drawing people to you. Maybe you see yourself making a decision from a place of complete self-assurance. Make it specific, make it real, add emotion, sensation, and detail. The key is to create a scene that implies your assumption is already true. Step 4. Feel it to be real. This is the most important step. You need to feel the reality of your assumption. Remember what Neville Goddard said: no idea can be impressed on the subconscious until it is felt. But once felt, be it good, bad, or indifferent, it must be expressed. Feeling is the one and only medium through which ideas are conveyed to the subconscious. When you visualize your scene, don't just see it, feel it. What would it feel like to be that confident? What would it feel like to be that successful? What would it feel like to be that version of yourself? Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. When you feel the reality of your assumption, your subconscious begins to accept it as true. And when your subconscious accepts something as true, it starts working to make it your reality. Step 5. Live from the end. Now comes the practical application. You need to start making decisions and taking actions from your new assumption. If you're assuming you're confident, how would a confident person handle the situation you're facing today? If you're assuming you're successful, what decisions would a successful person make? This isn't about faking it. It's about being it. It's about making the assumption so real in your mind that it starts expressing itself through your actions. Step 6. Maintain your mental diet. Just like Marilyn Monroe had to maintain her state of being, you need to maintain your new assumption. This means being vigilant about your thoughts. When the old assumptions try to creep back in, and they will, you need to consciously replace them with your new assumption. Don't feed your mind with thoughts that contradict who you're becoming. Don't entertain doubts about your worth or your potential. Guard your assumption like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Step 7. Persist. The final step is persistence. Assumptions don't change overnight. They need to be reinforced consistently until they become your new normal. Neville taught us, it is not what you want that you attract. You attract what you believe to be true. So persist in believing. Persist in assuming. Persist in living from your desired state until it becomes so natural that you forget you ever lived any other way. Here's what most people don't understand about the law of assumption. It's not just a technique for getting what you want. It's a fundamental truth about how reality works. You are always assuming something about yourself. Every moment of every day, you're broadcasting assumptions about who you are, what you're capable of, and what you deserve. The question isn't whether you're using the law of assumption. The question is whether you're using it consciously or unconsciously. Most people are unconscious. They inherit assumptions from their past, from their families, from their culture. They assume they're limited, ordinary, destined for mediocrity. And then they wonder why their life feels limited, ordinary, and mediocre. But when you become conscious of this process, when you realize that you can choose your assumptions, everything changes. You realize that you're not a victim of your circumstances. You're not stuck with the personality you were born with. You're not limited by your past or your current situation. You are the author of your own experience, the creator of your own reality, the director of your own life. This is what Marilyn Monroe understood. What she had was the understanding that she could choose who she wanted to be in any moment. She could assume any state, embody any energy, become any version of herself, and so can you. Right now, you're standing at a crossroad. You can continue being unconscious about your assumptions. You can let your past determine your future. You can remain a victim of the limiting beliefs that have been running your life. Or you can make a different choice. You can decide that from this moment forward, you're going to be intentional about who you become. You're going to choose your assumptions instead of inheriting them. You're going to live from the version of yourself that you most want to be. The power is in your hands. It always has been. Marilyn Monroe didn't have any special abilities that you don't have. She didn't have access to some secret knowledge that's hidden from you. She simply understood that identity is a choice, that confidence is a decision. Who you are is who you decide to be. Now, the question I'm going to ask you is this: are you ready to become who you really are? The confident, powerful, magnetic version of yourself that you know exists within you. If the answer is yes, then you know what to do. Assume the state, feel it real, live from the end result. Become the person you've always known you could be. The world is waiting to respond to the real you. All you have to do is assume it.